Hey everybody, in today's video we will be talking about the escalator of fear and anxiety and how it manifests into aggression and or reactivity. Now, how do you know if you're in the right place today? Well, if you have a dog that is barking, lunging, growling on walks at people and other dogs, out your house window at anything that goes by, at your TV potentially, in your own backyard, in your car, you're in the right place. There's also a lot of new people here, so let me give you a little introduction to who I am. I'm Denise Mazzola. I am a certified professional dog trainer. I have been working with dogs and people for over 30 years, and I was one of the first 500 to receive that certification when it first became available in the United States. I always say dogs and people because at the end of every leash is a human being. I've been an expert witness in several local dog attack cases. I am the founder and developer of our online program, Revealing Your Dream Dog, Ditch the Aggression, Not the Dog, and a lot of other on-demand courses, which you can take a look at on our website, everythingdognh.com. They're all listed there. So, sorry, Minty, I didn't introduce you. This is Minty. This is Geo. They're always here helping me talk to you guys and giving me my inspiration, sort of. All right, so let's talk about it. More and more people and dogs that I am working with are not recognizing I would call them the micro movements, the subtle movements that your dogs may be demonstrating, exhibiting, that lead up to the actual aggressive act or the actual reactivity. So it could be as subtle as your dog puts their ears up and is focused on something. That's a cue to you that your dog is now thinking about wherever their nose is pointing. And most recently, we were doing a consult with a family that has a new Frenchie, like he's probably 11 to 12 months, and a older 5 to 7 year old bulldog. So both dogs fall into the category of a bull breed. And if you're not familiar with what I'm discussing, you can look at Kim Brophy's book, Meet Your Dog, and look up the bull breeds to see if that's what your dog is and get the lay of the land there. And what I noticed was that and they're having dog fights. They're having lots of dog fights. And what I noticed while we were sitting there talking was that the little Frenchie got laser locked onto the bulldog. That was the first time the dog stepped on that escalator of, in his case, I would call it aggression, because he just kind of starts to attack. And then the next sort of step in his behavior was he started to move towards the bulldog. I was patting the bulldog. The Frenchie came around to my left, went under my chair, and then came out frontward facing the bulldog, and basically moved him away from me, controlling that environment in that situation, which he really had no business doing. But there was a lot of steps to that aggression escalator, and he didn't aggress that particular time because the bulldog deferred to him and moved back. So one of the really important skills that you all need to develop, and it's important that you develop. I can see this stuff. You can send me videos. People post in our Facebook group, the private Facebook group that has to do with our online course, videos of their dogs all the time. And I slow it down in slow motion. I break it down so they can start to train their eye to see what their dogs, you can almost think of them as the tells, right? Like in a poker face, everybody has a tell, what your dog's tells are. And they're going to fall into some categories like direct eye contact, ears forward. If you have German Shepherd, they're going to flip this way, but you really want to be paying attention when they are up and focused on a person, a dog, or a particular situation. So what we really want you to do is notice when your dog first steps onto that escalator of fear, of anxiety, of arousal, right? It can be any number of things. If you are still following the belief, which if you've heard anything that I say, more socialization is not the answer to stopping your dog's aggressive reactive behavior. But if you're still trying to get your dog out there and to socialize him more to see if he can get over it, you're actually putting him on the escalator and sending him or her up into reactivity, aggression, more fear, and or sensitizing him or her to the very thing that you're trying to help him, quote, get over, okay? So what I want you guys to start to do is notice when your dog says, hey, I've stepped onto the escalator of anxiety, of arousal, of aggression. And with this little Frenchie, I would say it was an escalator of arousal and aggression, right? Because the bulldog's key concept is arousal to aggression. And there's a lot of underlying anxiety in this dog because for him to, I'm going to anthropomorphize, for him to feel like he needs to control the physical movements of this significantly bigger and older dog who is an adult and he is not because he's one or under, is a lot of anxiety. And we saw it more and more as we were there that his tell is he starts to stare, his ears are riveted, and if you watch the bulldog's movement, he starts to turn his head, and then he goes forward, and if the bulldog has had enough, we're much more likely to have a fight in that case. So when you're walking your dog, if you have a reactive dog on walks, I'm going to call them works. You have to go out for a work with your dog. It's not going to be really a relaxing walk. And you're paying attention to the back of your dog's head, right? So that if Gio puts his ears up and I'm walking behind him, can you get your ears up? No, not really. But if he puts his ears up and I'm walking behind him, I can tell that. I can see that. I can recognize, oh, what's he looking at? His ears are up. And if his head is turned and his ears are up, then I just look in the direction of his nose. And I'm like, oh, he's looking at the squirrel or he's looking at the other dog. Now, with Minty, she is, much to our dismay, a little reactive and frustrated, really. She's not aggressive to other dogs, but her frustration level goes from nothing to 100 pretty quickly. So we're always watching the back of her head, right? Because we're walking behind her. She's often on a 15 or 20 foot leash so she can sniff and do her thing and be a dog on a walk. But we watch her, and when those ears go up and she gets a little square in the shoulder, hips, and tail, so her body squares off as opposed to being juxtaposition, we're like, oh, okay, she sees that dog. She's taking notice of that dog. She has stepped on the escalator of her frustration for her, because that's really her underlying issue. And she's going to go up that escalator the closer we get to that dog. And if we're on a sidewalk, we're not going to just pass by. We are going to move off, and we're going to give her distance from the dog so that we can help her come down that escalator of frustration. We don't want to keep going up. And we don't, we don't necessarily distract her. We tell her it's just a doggy. We feed her as we say that. We offer her support by, she would be on my right, then there's me, and then the dog would be over here. We're not going to ask her to walk directly past that other dog. We give her some distance. We give her a buffer, which is my body between her and the other dog. And for me, I just keep walking. I walk at a pretty good pace, so I keep going. But her tell on a walk that she sees the other dog and she's stepped on that escalator is that her ears go up. She squares off her body, right? There's a difference. Like if I'm sort of standing with my hip out and, right, I'm a little more relaxed. But when I stand up and I square everything off, and you can see that really well when you're walking behind your dog. So that's her tell. Then we say, okay, we get our treats ready. We say, yep, we see it, Minty. It's just a doggy. Do you see the doggy, Minty? That's a word, so I'm going to feed her that. Just a doggy, Minty. She naturally comes back into position. We keep going. We try to come down the escalator of frustration by stepping off the sidewalk, stepping off the trail, giving her some distance. She can still see the dog. We're not trying to, sneak it past her or any of those things. She sees it, we see it, we're acknowledging it, we're supporting her as she goes past it, and when she's past it, it's all done, and we're all done, and then we resume our walk in the normal way. So it's not a cure-all, you guys, but if you can start to recognize, oh, my dog's behavior's just changed, or all of a sudden your dog is erupting in something, you got to go back in time and ask yourself, what did I notice first? Maybe he stopped walking. Maybe he wouldn't walk forward anymore. Maybe he stopped walking and planted himself and was staring off over here. And you're trying to just keep walking in this direction and you're still pulling on the leash. So we've got to get out of our own head. You've got to put your phones down, sorry, and start to pay attention to your dog so you can tell what their tell is. I'm going to give you one more example. Again, another client was videoing her dog just kind of hanging out in their living room. And at a certain time of day, she gets a lot of people walking, dogs walking by. So in the video, I'm noticing that she's just sitting there looking at her iPad and the dog is sleeping at her feet and, his eyes are closed. I'm like, oh, that's great. And then he sits up. That's the first step on the escalator. He sat up. Now, in the video, I couldn't discern a sound, but he could because the windows were open. But he was laying down, really nice, and seemed very asleep. His eyes were actually closed, and then boom, he's sitting up. That's when she needs to take action. Not waiting for the barking and erupting and racing around the house. That dog has stepped on the escalator and is also asking the question, what is that? I hear something, what is that? So if she can answer the question for the dog, that's even better. Okay, you guys, so quick summary. Today we've talked about the escalator of fear, anxiety, frustration, and aggression and reactivity, and that I'm really going to encourage you to start observing your dogs. The best thing is to do is just video them and then go back and take a look at them. And your job is, we don't want to keep the dog going up the escalator of fear, the escalator of reactivity, the escalator of frustration, whatever your dog's underlying issue is. We want to say, oh, I see that you've just stepped on the escalator. Let me help you out, and I'm going to help you come down to either go on the down escalator or to try to just walk backwards instead of going up the escalator of aggression. All right, you guys, as always, we're always getting ready to offer our free webinar, on dog aggression called Dog Aggression, Fact versus Fiction. Ditch the aggression, not the dog. You can reply with the word CALM, C-A-L-M, in the comments, and someone, including myself, will send you the link so you can either register or you can get on the priority wait list depending on when you watch this video. So if you've got questions, if you've got comments, I read all of them. So drop those in the comments below as well, and I will see you on our next video.